Israel has called on Russia to protect its citizens and Jews after a mob stormed the main airport in Russia's Dagestan region following the arrival of a plane from Israel. As many as 20 people were injured in the riot at the facility in the city of Makhachkala. At least 60 people were temporarily detained. The airport has now reopened.
A huge crowd overwhelms the airport of Makhachkala, voicing their support for Palestinians and chanting anti-Semitic slogans. Videos posted on social media show how the mob broke through doors and barriers, with staff members trying to deter them. Some made their way to the runway. They were reportedly looking for Israeli citizens after a plane arrived from Israel. Authorities closed the airport and security forces were deployed at the site. Dagestan's religious leader has called for calm.
This issue cannot be resolved in this way. We will talk with the relevant people and will continue to try to resolve the issue differently, not with emotions, not with rallies, in an appropriate way.
After the incident in Makhachkala, Israel called on Russia to protect its citizens.
For more on this, our chief Russia correspondent Yuri Risheto joins us now. He's in the Latvian capital, Riga, where DW's been reporting from since being banned from Russia for our critical reporting. Yuri, what's the response been to the dramatic event we saw last night?
Well, for many, what happened in Dagestan, Michael, tonight came as a shock. And that is, of course, not in Dagestan itself, but in Dagestan. I spoke to some people from Dagestan who said very clearly that this angry crowd last night wasn't representative of the entire republic, but at the same time, they said that certain anti-Semitic tendencies are nevertheless very clear in Dagestan as well as everywhere in Russia nowadays. So the result of last night is 60 people were arrested, 20 people were injured, 2 of them very seriously, and the investigative committee has launched an investigation, and I think the reaction of the authorities will be very harsh in Russia because any form of protest has been suppressed from the start in Russia, and the protesters now face up to 15 years in prison. As for the situation of the passengers from the plane from Israel, they all seem to be safe, according to the media. Makhachkala airport is reopened, you mentioned it, even though some shops there were looted at night. However, the flights to Makhachkala were redirected to other airports.
Yuri, do we need any more context here? Do we need to understand anything more about the region?
Yes, Dagestan is known for the peaceful coexistence of many cultures and different religions, but as in many regions of the Caucasus, trends towards radicalization can be seen there as well. Because one thing is clear, what happened yesterday at the airport in Makhachkala wasn't the only anti-Semitic act. In the capital of Kabardino-Balkaria, Nalchik, the Jewish center that is currently being built was set on fire. In Dagestan itself, a day before the airport was stormed, a hotel was stormed where refugees from Israel were suspected. In the end, a note was hung at the entrance with the words, "There are no Jews here." The reason for this aggression is clear. It's the general situation in the region: poverty, unemployment, lack of prospects, personal and social problems, which all find an outlet in this street violence. In addition, the fact that protests are almost impossible in Russia only make people's anger even worse. Nevertheless, Michael, there is no reason to fear that these anti-Semitic protests will spread throughout Russia. Experts say 2/3 of Russians consider this conflict to be too far away and to want nothing to do with it.
Only half a minute, Yuri, but I do want to ask you, this violence came as a shock to Jews around the world, particularly in Israel, which has maintained close relations with Russia. What response can we expect from the Kremlin?
Well, the Kremlin has already reacted. Putin's spokesman Peskov called this outbreak of violence triggered from outside. He didn't specify by whom exactly. He spoke only of a certain external interference in Russia's internal affairs. The head of Dagestan, Melikov, became clearer here. In his opinion, it was the Ukrainians who ran the Telegram channel from which calls for violence were made. This is also a very typical reaction in Russia, to blame Ukraine and to point the finger firmly at the West.
Yuri Risheto, many thanks as always.